That's the phone.
Hello, sir.
Hi everyone, welcome.
Hello, sir.
Hi, welcome. Great to see all of you. Please do turn on your video if you're able to. It'll be lovely to see you. Lots of different people here. We're very excited. Also seeing a wide range of age groups compared to our usual, which is great. Welcome. How many of you have already started your exams? I think Purva raised her hand, but maybe not.
You can put it in the chat also.
Yes, you can put it in the chat. So, hi everyone, welcome. As is usual with Gifted World, we're an online community space. We're very happy to see all of you here. Please do ensure your name is your actual name that you want to be called by, because in case you ask a question and we want to call you up to share it live, we will be using your name. So please do correct your name to be accurate. And it would also be lovely to see you to see you.
Sir, please change my.
Yes, Kabir, we will change your name.
I accidentally selected my mom's name by mistake.
No worries, Kabir. We're on it. So until the session starts, we're happy to have everyone chat. But once the session starts, we'll be putting you all on mute, just because there are going to be a lot of people here and we want it to run smoothly. So Kabir, there's you.
Sir, when the session.
Who was that? You've go ahead, ask your question.
Sir, when the session end?
When does the session end? This is 1.5 hours, so it'll end at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, you were taking from India?
Yes, I am calling from India. As is Dr. Anusha Krishnan, who is our mentor for today. We're all here talking from India. But we do a lot of interaction and teaching with students in the UAE as well. Anusha.
I'm in UAE now.
Yeah. Anusha, in fact, last year taught a course that was largely attended by students from the UAE. And it was a course on storytelling. Anyone over here has attended any of Anusha's past courses or masterclasses? I know Kabir has. Yeah. Anyone else? Krishiv, you've also attended Anusha's course or masterclass?
Yes, I have the master class.
You were in the previous masterclass. Okay, lovely. Yeah, so a lot of people here already know how amazing a teacher Anusha is, and you're back for more. That's great to know. How many of you is this your first ever time on Gifted World? Do raise your hands and tell us. Or how many of you is it your first ever time on Gifted World? Wow. Yay. It's always exciting to see so many new people around. So we've got so far about 10% of, no, 20% of the people here are new, which is lovely. And Trisha has also attended. Huh. Great. So we'll be doing a short introduction in about 5 minutes when we start. And Also, I want to tell you that this session is being streamed live on YouTube. Okay. And so in case the session fills up and there's no more space, you can tell your friends to see it on YouTube. They'll be redirected there. And in case you want to see anything about this session or your connection just falls off, then you can see the whole session live on YouTube. I encourage all of you to follow our YouTube channel. We always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We always put all our masterclasses recordings up for free over there. And so over the past year, we have a whole bunch of really fun videos that are there. So please check that out. Great. So for all of those, for those of you who have just joined, a reminder as usual, please update your name so that it's accurate. Secondly, please do turn on your video if you're able to. And thirdly, we're a large meeting, so let's be polite and nice to each other. Now, while we're waiting for the meeting to start and for everyone to trickle in, I have a quick question for you, okay, which it would be great if you could put it in the chat. Someone was communicating. Oh, yes, someone was in the communicating with Blink's masterclass. That makes sense. I was wondering. Nice to see you, Omkar. So today's icebreaker question. Today's icebreaker question is: what was the last story that you told anyone?
Put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat. Yeah. What was the last story that you told anyone? I'll tell you my answer. I made up a story about the first time that I drove a car in order to put my kids to bed. Like, I do this every day. I know it's a little disappointing. They think that this is that their dad has these really great adventures in life, but mostly it's me making up stories so that they go to sleep and I get like time to breathe. So what was the last story that you made up? Or read, okay, or story that you read. Abhinav says Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was the story he read. Soumya says The Thirsty Crow is the last story that she mentioned. Oh, decline. Someone has meeting notes. Can you check out meeting notes?
Yeah.
Great. What was the last story that you read? I see Matilda. Oh, Matilda, such a lovely story. All those I really, really loved reading Roald Dahl books. They were in my school library. And there was this whole fascinating other side to Roald Dahl, which was he was a fighter pilot. And so he's got all of these books about really amazing comedies, and then books about being a fighter pilot. Right? So that was pretty cool. Sudha Murthy's books. Okay, cool. David Copperfield. Someone has been reading K-pop stories. And Sherlock, when he was in the past, was Sherlock Holmes, but in the present, he was Sherlock Holmes. Okay, sorry, bad joke for a typo. But in the past, Sherlock had Holmes, but now he's just Holmes. And maybe in the future, he will be Sherlock will Holmes or Sherlock Homing is present. What knows? Tom Sawyer, The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I have never heard of this book. That is so cool. And someone
It's a very cool book. I've read about half of it. It's a very nice book. It's very interesting.
Wow, what fun. Yeah. Movie Diary, the next chapter.
Not heard of this one.
Not heard of this one either.
There's one called The Hidden Hindu. That sounds like an absolute mystery, no?
I was thinking of the newspaper being hidden in a drawer or something.
Could
That
be.
was the image that came to me.
Hindu.
Kill a Mockingbird. Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, I know that's advanced.
Yeah. But we've got people of
All
great
ages.
here. So, yeah, it's lucky to hear. The George series. Oh, yes, I've heard of this. Stephen Hawking's George series. I've heard of it, but I've not read it. So lovely. Oh, and this, yes, that's where I've heard about it. I've heard about it from Krishnan. So, no, Omkar, yes, you've read a lot of books, but what's the most recent book that you've read? Was the question I had. Well, actually, my question was, what's a recent story that you made up, which is also fine. Keeper of the Lost Cities. Huh. Murder at a museum. Akbar and Beer. Geronimo Stilton, yeah. And Geronimo has a sister or something like that?
Yeah, Thea Stilton.
Ah, Thea Stilton. Okay. I mean, usually in master classes, it's about all the participants educating me about, I don't know, life and culture. And I tend to do a little education about science and math, but it's really them that do all the rest. But this time, I'm proud to tell you that today's mentor, Dr. Anusha Krishnan, is well versed in all of these things and therefore able to take on the role of educating Siddharth. Yeah, and Anushka over there has done lots of Siddharth education, so she is able to.
The little girl in the window.
Yeah. Something called the 1,000-year-old boy. Oh, Toto Chan is lovely, as is Sophie's World. Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
Huh. Okay. Anyone else? More books, more book recommendations. I know it's exam time, but here's a story that my parents don't know. When I was in like 8th or 9th grade, everyone leaves you alone, no, to study for exams. My parents had gone for work, and they made the mistake of they bought the Lord of the Rings. They said, "Here, you can read this after exams." But I'm at home by myself because after exams you come home early. No, happily that March during exam time, I sat and I read the Lord of the Rings. Okay, so that started me down one. I mean, I reread it, and then in 10th grade, my friends and I made a break time quiz where we'd ask each other arcane questions, and nobody kept track of points. But anyway, exams and books and stories. That was my story for it. So with that, I think we have a good number of people who've joined in. And I think we can get started for today's session. So just give me a moment to ensure my screen is properly set up. Just a moment, folks. Great. So we can get started.
Someone says my science textbook was the last storybook that I read. I'm not sure what to say about that.
I think that's a very, very good answer, right? It's a deeper point of what we're trying to make over here.
Yes.
Right. So, hi everyone, and welcome this Saturday afternoon to this Gifted World Masterclass. It's really great to see such a spread. I'm Siddharth. I'm one of the facilitators and mentors at Gifted World, and it's really a pleasure to see so many of your faces out here. Again, a reminder, please do put your name to be the name as you'd like to see it. Put your video on if you're able to, because we'd love to see you. And third, let's be nice and kind to each other because there are 100 people in the room. And I mean, normally, if you are 100 people in a physical room, it would be loud. So let's be nice to each other. I want to inform you also that this session is being streamed live on YouTube because we had 350 people who registered for it, but only 100 seats on Zoom. So you can also see this session on YouTube afterwards. Just go to our Gifted World channel. So a brief introduction about what is Gifted World. I'll just share my screen, tell you about it. So we are an online community for students, parents, and educators who seek to enable students to reach their full potential. Okay, we've been around for a year, and we have many, many different ways of engaging. We have been founded by the Northwestern University Educational Initiatives and GenWise, 3 leaders in this field. And we run a variety of programs, all online, for you to have a lot of fun learning. We focus on curiosity and conceptually driven learning. We're not a replacement for school. We're not exam coaching, but what we are is enabling you to learn in a fun way. And we really want to help you build a love for learning and the ability to learn. So we have a whole range of events. We have free masterclasses like the one you're attending today by Dr. Anusha Krishnan. We also have a range of courses that we're really excited for this summer, including 2 courses that Anusha will be running in biology. There are courses in physics, in mathematics. The physics one is being taught by Sukanya Sinha, a very senior mentor who some of you have learned from over here. I'm teaching a course on the mathematics of change, series and sequences. There's a course on photography, one on the building blocks of robotics, one on investigating the past, and 2 courses by Anusha, which we will also be featuring towards the end of this webinar. So for those of you who newly joined the community, our blog has a lot of useful resources on education, conceptual thinking, etc. And our YouTube channel has recordings of all of our past masterclasses. There's also an incredible summer program that runs in Manipal, in Karnataka, in India, every year in May. If you're interested in, that's for grades 6 and above. And in Gifted World, we tend to have classes that are from grades 4 through grades 8 and above. So with that, I want to bring us to today's session. So today we're having a session called Narrative Thinking to Crack Exams. It's being run by Dr. Anusha Krishnan, who is a really incredible person. She's a scientist who has studied fig-wasp mutualisms. So you all probably eaten figs. And figs are actually like huge collections of flowers. And inside those collections of flowers are tiny little wasps. And Anusha is someone who has had the skill, the ability, the patience to actually study that incredible interaction. And after getting a PhD on figs and fig-wasp interactions, she's worked in a variety of roles as a project manager, as a science communicator, as a journalist. And over the past year at Gifted World, she's taught a course on storytelling secrets, which several of you attended. Many of you actually wrote stories out of it. And I personally have found this view of storytelling as a way of understanding how the world works and how all of us communicate, whether we're scientists or prime ministers or CEOs or even just regular people, teachers. We all communicate through stories. And therefore, I'm really grateful that Anusha agreed to and came up with this idea of conducting a masterclass around narrative thinking to crack exams. I know the exam season is coming up for many of you, and it's almost like knowing content and being able to write exams are orthogonal or perpendicular axes, right? You can develop a skill that helps you with exams or also helps you with other things in life. And Anusha is showing us a way to develop that skill independent of your content knowledge, though content knowledge is obviously very helpful. So with that, it's a couple of ground rules. We're going to be keeping you all on mute because there are 100 people here. But please do share your questions in the chat. And there are times where it will be interactive. There'll be plenty of interaction. So just look forward to seeing all your answers in the chat. And for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, feel free to put in comments over there. We'll be keeping track of your comments and questions, and we'll also share those for Anusha to answer. With that, I think I have spoken enough, and I now hand it over to Dr. Anusha Krishnan for today's masterclass. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharth, and welcome every one of you. And let's get started. Right. Is everyone able to see my screen, Siddharth?
Yes, looks good.
All right, great. Okay, so today's masterclass is going to be on storytelling for exams. So I know Siddharth gave you a fairly large title, but I decided to keep it a little shorter and just thought that, today's talk is going to be on storytelling for exams. Right. So I want all of you guys to think about what is storytelling. Okay. So what do you think storytelling can be? All right. At least in my thought process, storytelling is the act of sharing events, ideas, beliefs, and experiences. Okay. And you can do this through so many different ways. It could be using words and pictures to convey actions. And if you put these two definitions together, you'll realize that storytelling is something that you can do either through actual written stories, by written words, through pictures, that is through comics, by combining both of them through words and pictures and audio effects into things that come out on TV or as videos that you can see. So essentially, storytelling is something that we do on a daily basis, even when we are having conversations. And we do this to essentially share experiences or share ideas or thoughts with other people. So at the end of the day, storytelling is also using a narrative structure to convey information. And we're going to kind of focus on the last bit, which is using that narrative structure and to convey information, to also look at how storytelling will help you in exams. So essentially, when you think of an exam, what is an exam? It's just a whole bunch of questions which are asking you to convey what information or what knowledge you have gained over, some amount of time with your studying, to a teacher who's trying to gauge how much of that information you've actually absorbed. So to be able to, so for example, you may know all the information, but how are you going to put it across and tell your teacher that you know that? So that is why storytelling is just so important when you are writing an exam answer. Okay. Yeah. So here's a quick question about where you can find stories. I'm going to stop here. Janani, are you going to be setting up the poll and asking the question today about where you can find stories?
The poll is live.
Yes.
So
I think I gave it away with that slide. I'm so sorry. But anyway, we were seeing some interesting stuff here.
So as you can see, most people are saying that stories are all around.
All around and everywhere, yes. But I also see somebody there has thought about the textbooks part, which is very interesting.
Maybe it's the one person who said in my science textbook.
Yes. The last story that they read was in that science textbook. That's really cool.
Back to you, Anusha.
Yeah, all right. Right. So I did give away that bit of an answer, which is that essentially stories are everywhere. You look out the window, there's a story. On the road, there's a story. In your house, there is a story. Especially if you live in a house which is full of drama, there are lots of stories. On the TV, on the internet, everywhere you look or everywhere you don't look, you still have stories out there. But for today's session, like I said, we're going to focus on what's in your textbooks, and we're going to focus on the stories in your textbooks, and we're going to focus on how you're going to be able to tell those stories during an exam. Right. So how can you use storytelling in schools and exams? One is, of course, to answer exam questions. And for this session, we're going to focus mostly on essay type questions. But here's a really nice thing. If you learn how to answer essay type questions, the other types of questions are going to be an absolute breeze. So, short answer questions, definitions, everything is something that you will be able to cover and answer very quickly if you understand the concept of how you can answer an essay type question. And by essay type question, I mean questions which are there for, a large amount of marks, like let's say 3 marks to 5 marks, something like that. Okay. Of course, storytelling can be used as a tool to study for exams. If you can understand the kind of questions and how to answer them, it's going to help you to study for exams. And, here is an extra bonus part that I'm going to add in for today's workshop is that, you can get better marks on your project work if you think about doing your projects the same way that you would want to answer an exam question, which is through using storytelling. Okay. Here's a disclaimer. The techniques that I'm going to be talking about today will not help in maths or in numerical sums. For those, you will have to practice regularly to be good at them. Okay. So moving on. What we're going to start off with is to look into a teacher's mind. So right now, you guys are all students, okay? You guys are all little persons who are thinking about how to answer a question in an exam. But if you flip that and you think about, if you are the teacher, what kind of an answer would you like to see for a question? Okay. So what kind of answers or what are the points that a teacher is looking for when they are looking at your answer sheet? One thing is I can guarantee you one of the things that you're looking for is a keyword. Okay. So whenever you have a question, sometimes there are these specific words that can, get you marks very easily. As long as you put those keywords into a sentence, into a paragraph, doesn't matter. And I know of certain teachers who will keep a list of keywords and, they will tick it. Sometimes they don't even read the whole paragraph. They'll just look, okay, this person has used all the keywords, they get these marks. They also look for correct spelling. So it doesn't make sense putting in a keyword if the keyword is not spelled correctly. Relevant points. So first and foremost, before you even begin answering a question, you should probably look at how much that answer is worth. Is it a 1-mark question? Is it a 4-mark question? So given how many points there are for that question, you should base your answer on that. And most of these teachers are also looking at how many of the points that they are looking for are answered using keywords and correct spelling by the students who are giving the exam. Teachers also really appreciate it if you write easy to read answers, as in if you write sentences that are neatly constructed, if you go point by point, if you have a proper flow to your answer. Okay, so if you use these techniques, usually teachers are very, very happy to read your answer and to award you points for that answer. Legible handwriting. I know this is not a very important part of this masterclass, but legible handwriting is something, as in your teacher should be able to read your handwriting. So if you write big, usually teachers are able to read better. Okay, so that's just a bonus point that I'm adding in over there. Finally, teachers are always looking for an excuse to cut marks. They have this little sword in their minds and they're like, this person has given these points, but, this they spelled incorrectly. This particular point they did not use. So maybe I will cut half a mark here. I will cut 1/4 mark over here. Something or the other they will try to look at to cut marks. And for language teachers, it is much more, used. So the way that you can try to parry that sword strike that these teachers use to cut marks, you have to parry with a bonus, which means that you can add in a bonus point or you can add in something extra special to your marks, which will make the teacher think, do I really need to cut marks? So essentially, just to give you an idea of where and how I learned these techniques, My story starts with, in school. Now, when I was in school, I was very much a buddhu. I was quite a bit of a dum-dum. I didn't know how to write answers. So I would try to either fill up my answer paper with lots and lots of words, or if I didn't know anything, I would just leave it blank and not do anything. Then something switched, when I came to college. There, I noticed that a lot of the teachers were looking for something specific. And that's where that list that I showed you came up. And then I had another amazing revelation, and that came when I read this book called The Molecular Biology of the Cell. It's an absolutely amazing book that talks about all the different things that happen inside a cell. And it's only focused on cells. It doesn't talk about anything else. Okay, so it's a very detailed scientific look at the chemistry inside a cell, the organelles inside a cell, all the processes that happen inside a cell. And then what I realized is every time I had an exam question and I looked up the answer in the cell, okay, I would realize that all of the points that I mentioned in the previous slide, which is keywords, which is easy to read, which is correct spelling, and this added bonus point of beautiful pictures and everything was shown in this book. So in a way, what happened in college was that one thing, I figured out what teachers wanted. And the second thing was, I figured out that the cell actually gave me a very good basis for trying to write answers. So essentially, if I copied the way things were written and explained in the cell, I would be able to write really good answers. So any of you, if you're interested, at some point of time, this book is freely available. I've put up the link over here. It's an amazing book to just go through. Even if you don't understand the context and you don't understand the content, doesn't matter. Just flip through the book and you'll see how nicely things are put together, how beautifully things are represented. Okay, so yeah. Now, given that you have this background of what a teacher wants, and I've given you the story about how I found a fantastic way to write answers, let me take you through a couple of points on how to write an answer. So the first thing on how to write an answer, how to think about writing an answer is to understand what is required in an answer. If you understand what a question is, it can actually help you study better. So in many ways, before you start studying for a test and you have one big chapter that you need to study, what you should probably do is go back at the end of that chapter and look at all the questions. So look at the questions. What kind of questions are people asking? So that will give you an idea of what kind of questions you can expect. And therefore, that will give you an idea of what you should focus on when you're studying. The second thing is that whenever you're faced with a question, always look at how much that answer is worth, because that is going to give you an idea of how much effort and how much time you're going to put into answering that question. Okay. Then this is something that is very important. You need to think out of the box in terms of how you write answers and say, what is the least amount that I can write to get the maximum marks? Which means that you think about how much an answer is worth, and then you think about a clever way to represent your answer. Okay, here again, this is where I need you guys to think out of the box and think not just in words. Is it possible for you to perhaps answer a question, using more than just words? And finally, when you are thinking about answering a question and you're thinking about words to use in that question, what are the key topics or words in that topic that that question is asking about? And therefore, those are the keywords that you need to focus on. And like I said, the bonus point here, that point that will make your teachers question whether they can cut marks or not, is to add a diagram or add a figure or a flow chart, or you throw in an analogy, you throw in a story about that concept or whatever it is that that particular subject or topic is about. And that, even if it is just one line or two lines, is going to make your teachers want to give you those extra marks. Okay, so essentially what we're looking for is, you've got a teacher over here with this huge sword who's trying to cut marks. You're trying to convert this teacher into somebody who is like, great, neat job, kid. You've done such a great job on this answer that I don't know where to cut marks and I don't want to cut marks. Okay, and the secret to that is something that we're going to look at in the coming slides. Okay, so as I think both Siddharth and Janani might have sent out in the ad for this master class, we did say that there would be a little toolkit to help you guys write better answers. So here is the toolkit. All right. Again, there's a disclaimer here. These points and these tools will not help in maths or numerical sums. You have to practice for those. Okay. First thing in the toolkit is a point system. Please break down your marks into points. Okay. So usually it is easiest to do 1 point for every mark. But if you're at an advanced level and you think you can do it, you can, put in 1 point for every half a mark. So try to think of your exam answer as, a series of points. Okay, so let's say that there is a question for 4 marks. Then you should write enough points, or you should write enough sentences for each mark. Okay. The second thing that you can think about while answering a question is to use the 5W plus 1H rule. Now, what is that rule? It is who, what, where, why, when, and how. So if you have a question, you can think about how to answer that question by answering who that question is about, what that question is about, where the events or whatever that question is asking about happened, why those events happened, when those events happened, and how those events happened. So you can use this particular rule in many different situations. It doesn't always exist for every situation, but in most cases, you will be able to do this. Try to use an analogy to explain a concept. Now, what do you mean by an analogy? It is essentially a way of explaining a concept using, let's say, a daily or an everyday occurrence that happens, or something that is common that a person who may not understand or may not know about the concept can easily grasp. So, for example, I will come to a couple of examples and analogies later on when I'm discussing questions and answers, but keep that in mind that if you can use an analogy to explain a concept to a teacher, there is an immediate tick mark in that teacher's brain that goes off, which says that if this child is using an analogy, it means that this child has understood that concept. So analogies are very powerful tools if you want to get good marks. And finally, using pictures. So using pictures, you can use diagrams, you can use timelines, you can use flow charts, you can use so many different ways of, you can use equations. You can use so many different ways of writing an answer without having to write whole sentences. Okay. And we will see how we can apply all of these to answering questions in the series of examples that I will give after this. So yeah. These are the series of questions that I have, which we will look at. The first one is a chemistry base. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to cover all the different subjects that you guys might encounter for your exams. Okay, so for example, the first one is a chemistry question, but it's for a short question. It's only 2 marks. And I will show how easy it is for you to get those 2 marks by writing the least. Okay. The second question, which is on why carbon is called the backbone of life, is a chemistry question, but it's a large question. The rest of the question, the third one is on physics. The fourth one and the fifth one are both on biology. The fifth one is on, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. The sixth one is on history. The seventh one is on civics, and that's a special one. I think the seventh one has now become the 8th one. That's the last one. And we have also one question on geography. All right. Okay. So from now on, this is going to be a little less interactive and I'm going to be talking a lot. So please put on your listening ears. Please put on your, attentiveness brain. Get your attentiveness brain into gear, because the later part of this presentation, the next few slides, are going to be a little dense in terms of content. And so you will have to pay a little extra attention to see what I'm doing. Right. Let's come to this question which says a mixture of oxygen and ethine. So just for those guys who don't know what ethine is, it is a colorless and odorless gas, which has a lot of energy, and it is burnt for welding. So the question is that, can you explain why a mixture of ethine and oxygen is burnt rather than a mixture of ethine and air for welding? So a typical, answer, a good answer to this will have 2 points. Okay. And that would be, the first point is when mixed with pure oxygen, ethine burns at a very high temperature, making it perfect for welding. And the second point will talk about why air is not good for mixing with ethine. Because if ethine is mixed with air, the oxygen content in air is only 21%. Whereas if you use pure oxygen, it's 100%. Okay. So when ethine is mixed with air, there is incomplete combustion. And this produces a, ashy flame with much less heat, and it makes it unsuitable for welding. So this is actually a fairly good answer. And, most teachers would be happy to give 2 marks. But if by chance you have that one teacher who's not very happy and will say, no, I don't, I mean, it's not such a great answer. Maybe I will give only 1 mark or 1.5 marks. Then, you can use a couple of bonus ideas which will help you get those marks, which is, you use an analogy or you use a storytelling approach, which is that ethine, and here you're giving the composition of ethine, C2H2, is a highly flammable gas. So you're explaining what is ethine, but it needs the right partner to burn efficiently. So here you notice you're using a storytelling way to tell the teacher that, look, ethine is such and such thing, but if it needs to burn efficiently for welding, it needs the right partner. Okay. And beyond this, if you add this along with these 2 points, your teacher's quite evidently going to give you at least 1.5 marks out of the 2. But let's say that you don't have the time to write this much. You notice that this is quite a lot of words. How will you tackle this issue? It is that you can simply use, rather than writing this answer in the form of sentences, you can write it in the form of an equation. Okay. So you can simply write these 2 equations. One which is ethine plus 100% oxygen gives complete combustion, a white flame which is around 3000 degrees Celsius and is excellent for welding. And the second one is ethine with just air, gives incomplete combustion, a sooty flame, lower heat, unsuitable for welding. So if you notice, in just 2 lines, rather than, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, rather than 6 lines, you have only written like 2 lines. And perhaps if you add that bonus line, totally you become 3 lines. You reduced your writing time to just about half. Okay. And you reduce the number of words that you've had to use by half. And I can guarantee you that your teacher is going to give you at least 1.5 to 2 marks for this. Okay. Moving on, let's move on to the larger questions, which is the 5-mark questions. So the first 5-mark question that I put up was to explain why carbon is called the backbone of life. Okay, so this is a mix of chemistry and biology. And typically what you would do is you would take a chemistry a chemistry angle to this. So you will have to say that carbon has tetravalency, which means that it has 4 valence electrons, and that allows it to form bonds with many, many different elements. The second point, now if you notice, since this is 5 marks, I have made 5 points. Okay. So the second point is catenation. Carbon can also bond with itself, and it forms these long chains, which is excellent for forming complex structures like DNA. The third point is that it forms very strong covalent bonds, and this ensures that, the molecules that carbon makes, which are mostly these organic molecules which are required for life, they're stable. Carbon can also form multiple bonds. So it doesn't just form one bond with with another element. It can form 2 bonds. It can form 3 bonds. All of these are important for, diversity, which is also very important for life. And 5th point is that it is compatible with many functional groups. So it can form bonds with many, many different groups and not just with other elements. Okay. And all of these are important for the different molecules of life that we see, like proteins and carbohydrates and fats and nucleic acids. Now, like I said, by and large, if you just give these 5 points, you're probably going to get a good amount of marks for this. But you can elevate your game and say, add in this bonus point. So here is the analogy. In a world of elements, carbon is a team player and has the special capacity to form strong and diverse bonds, making it the backbone of all organic life. The following characteristics make carbon ideal as a backbone for life. And then if you give all of these 5 points, voila, you should probably have an answer that will net you at least 4.5 marks. But you want to go that extra, I'm sorry, is...
Yeah, Anusha, so just one quick question.
Right.
So some folks in the chat are asking, they're finding the content a little advanced
Okay.
because they're in 5th or 6th grade. And so if
Uh-huh.
also share in the bigger picture what you're doing that's
Uh-huh.
relevant for younger students as well, that will be helpful.
Right. So essentially what I'm saying is in the larger context of everything, you have to find at least, so for a 5-mark question, you need to find 5 points to write about for every topic. And apart from those 5 points or more than 5 points, you add in a bonus point, which is about an analogy which, explains what that concept is. And you can also add a fantastic little drawing somewhere over there, which is to show that carbon can bond with something else. And, you give these different, you give these different structures that carbon can form, and that will give you all the marks. So shall we pause over here and maybe take a bit of, feedback on this, Siddharth?
Sure. So one of the questions that has come up is in which part of an answer while I'm writing it, can you add these bonuses? So you've clearly laid out what is the main points and where is the bonus, but how do I add the bonus in?
How do you add the bonus in? So usually the bonus is added right in the beginning. The first line that you write, if you can add in your bonus with an analogy, you can, explain what the concept is using, just like I said, if you have to, if somebody asks you, why is carbon such an important molecule? Then how will you explain it? You can explain it using an analogy saying that carbon is a team player. It bonds with, it plays with so many different elements. Okay, so that is called an analogy, which is that you try to personify whatever it is that you're trying to say with something that is easily understandable. Okay, and you can usually start that off so that bonus point can come right at the beginning or it can come right at the end. So you could perhaps answer your question and then right at the end you can say, so all of these points make carbon a fantastic team player, which is why it is so common in so many different organic molecules. Does that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay.
There was another question saying that our 5th grade teacher knows that some of us are ahead of class and knows that we use chemical formulas to write less and hence doesn't allow it. So what advice do you have for that situation?
Right. So I was just wondering about that. So the thing is, in such situations, you can put in your chemical formulas. There is nothing wrong with it. And even if a teacher says, no, don't do it, you can still do it because, you're not going to have that teacher there forever. And there are going to be some teachers who are going to be happy to see those chemical formulas. Add in the chemical formulas, but make sure that you also write things in words. So yes, in a way, yours is not a great situation where, you can use the chemical formulas to bypass the writing, but I still see no problem with using chemical formulas. Only problem is that under the chemical formula, you will actually have to write either in a sentence or at least put in the names of the chemicals to make sure that the teacher gets the information that he or she is looking for. Right. Any other questions, Siddharth?
Hi, Anusha, Janani here.
Yeah.
Can you just let folks know that it doesn't quite matter if they understand the question or not? It's just about how you're structuring the answer.
Yes. So again, guys, don't worry too much about the content. I have picked out these questions because these are common NCERT questions which come up very often in exams. So all you need to pay attention to, don't think too much about the content and the different words that I have used over there. Those are things that you will learn very easily as and when you come to that particular standard, which is probably in your 7th grade or 8th grade onwards. Okay, so we are at a slightly advanced level here. What you guys need to look at is to see the structure and the addition, the value additions that you put into your answers. Okay. So given that, let me get back and we'll go through the rest of the questions and I'll try and tone it down a little so that I'm focusing more on the structure and less on the actual content.
Yeah, and just when you come to it next, there's also been a question of does it help in explaining numerical sums? So like in business studies or economics, if I have to explain costs with a table given, how do I match up? So it's not like questions are purely numerical and purely words.
Right.
But for the questions that are a mix of words and numbers, how do we apply this approach? I
right. So, okay. So in such a situation, I think what applies is storytelling logic. Okay, so in the situation of, let's say, an economic a question in economics, and perhaps you have a question which says, these are the costs, and these, can you explain whether these costs are, needed or not, or whatever it is. Well, what you will have to do is you will have to clearly show that these are the costs, and perhaps show that these are the returns on those costs, and then link the two in a logical flow. Say that these are the costs, these are the earnings that you get. Therefore, it may be a good idea to adopt certain strategies so that you can decrease the costs and increase the earnings. So I'm just taking, off the bat, I'm trying to think of a question in economics that would fit such a situation, but this is what I can think of.
Thanks, Anusha.
Okay.
You can go ahead and stop in a little while again for questions.
Right. Okay. Right. So like I said, guys, don't worry too much about all the details over here. You will come to it. But for now, just bear in mind that if there's a 5-mark question, it's a good idea to write 5 points and add in that bonus point about a story or about an analogy. And finally, add in that another bonus point where you can use a figure or a flow chart or something to add value to that question, to that answer. Okay. Right. So this is again a slightly dense question, which is, what is the principle of an electric motor? As in, how does an electric motor run, essentially? And, rightly, it's a very dense question. It's packed full of information, and it is for 5 marks. So a typical answer, which would probably warrant 5 marks, but may not get it, is that an electrical motor works on the principle that, there is a current and there is a magnetic field. And when you have a conductor and you put current through a conductor and you place that current and conductor in a magnetic field, there is a force. And because of that force, that conductor starts to move. And there is a rule in physics, which is called the Fleming's left-hand rule, which shows how it shows the relationship between the current, between the magnetic field and the movement that will be there on the conductor. Okay. So these are again concepts that you guys will come to later on. But let's look at how you can structure this answer. Essentially, what I'm doing here now is to look at 5 different points that are important for the electric motor. The first point over here is what makes that motor go, which is the magnetic field and the current flow. Okay. And then you can give some ideas about, how that system is set up. So which is what these other 2 small points over there look at. The second point over here is, because there's a magnetic field and the current flow, there is a force on the coil. There's a force on the conductor that is there, which is a motor effect, which is what actually makes it move. Okay. So these 2 are the 2 first and most major points that you need to put in to explain how a motor works. Then after that, the other 2 points are mainly about how that motor keeps working. So one is continuous rotation. How is it that a motor keeps moving in the same direction? Okay. And the 4th point here is how this conversion of electrical energy is converted into useful motion and how that happens. Okay. So overall, I said it's for 5 marks and you need 5 points. So I've only showed 4 points here. The 5th point is made up in this first sentence, which is that you explain that an electric motor is a device that converts current into physical motion. And if you want to, rather than using this rather boring explanation, you can use an analogy or you can use a story. So that's where the bonus comes. And here, as you can see, the bonus can either come right at the beginning or it can come at the end. Here, in this case, the bonus comes in the beginning. When playing with a battery-operated toy car, how does electricity turn into motion? So that itself tells you, you have given an example of where a motor is working. So the teacher knows that you know where an electrical motor is supposed to work. And then there's a very neat definition of what an electrical motor does in very simple words. An electrical motor converts electrical energy into mechanical energy using magnetism. And if you notice, all the words that I have highlighted, which are in bold, are all keywords. Okay. I think I missed saying this in the previous couple of examples, but wherever you see these bolded words, it means that they are keywords. And sometimes if a teacher sees these keywords, they will tick those keywords and give you the marks without even reading the sentences in between. Okay. And in order to make this again, this rather, if you don't want to write too much and explain the Fleming's left-hand rule, if you don't have the time to do that, all you can do is simply draw the Fleming's left-hand rule. Here, you don't have to actually draw the hand. You can just draw the direction in which each of these things is shown. Beyond this, of course, you know, for students who are a bit more advanced, you can actually draw a simple, a simple diagram of a motor and put all of these points in the relevant places. Okay, right. So, hang on. Now, what I'm going to do is that till now, all of the different examples that we have looked at have mostly looked at how to use the points principle and the analogies and the figures to be able to get good answers. Okay. But there is also another system there which we have not looked at yet. And that is, let me just go back and point out what that point was, the tool that we have not used yet. Okay. Right. So remember, guys, when I was talking about the tools to write better answers, we've used the point system, we've used the analogies, and we've used the pictures and diagrams. But this part, you know, the who, what, where, why, when, and how principle, we've not used till now. And that is what I'm going to show you how to use in the next couple of questions. Okay. Just give me a minute. Let me come to this. Yeah. Right. Okay. So let's say that you have a question which is, what is a balanced diet? I'm pretty sure that all of you from grades 4 onwards would have had something about a balanced diet. Okay. So first and foremost, you will have to use the what. Okay. What is a balanced diet? So give a brief definition of what a balanced diet is. Right. So that is 1 mark. Second mark, who? Who does a balanced diet? Who needs a balanced diet? So here you can explain by saying that everybody needs a balanced diet, but a balanced diet is different for different people. So say, for example, age groups, people who are younger require a different kind of balanced diet. People who are active versus sedentary have a different kind of a balanced diet. Men versus women have different kinds of diets. And women who are undergoing pregnancy, they will have a different kind of balanced diet. So if you can give an example of what type of diets these kind of people need to have, that would be fantastic. And that would definitely give you 1 extra mark. Okay. Look at the when. What kinds of food should you have or not have during different kinds of the day? That is also a very important part of a balanced diet. Why? What are the reasons for a balanced diet? Why should you have a balanced diet? And finally, how? Here is where you can give an example of a balanced diet. You talk about carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins and minerals, water and fiber, and talk about how much of each of these you ideally require. Now, this last part, this how, also nicely ties in with the who. So you can say, for example, if you talk about how to have a balanced diet first, and then, after what is a balanced diet, if you talk about how to have a balanced diet and then move on to who should have a balanced diet and what type of balanced diet, you can always say, for example, younger people require more carbohydrates and proteins than older people. And you can give an example for active and sedentary people. So active people will require again more carbohydrates than sedentary people. Sedentary people should probably eat lesser calories than active people. So you can tie up all of these different things, and you can get these. For these 5 marks, you actually have these 5 different points to construct your answer. Now, the bonus point over here would be for using an analogy. So what is a balanced diet akin to? So this, I thought, was a very nice analogy. If you imagine your body is like a football team, and for the team to win, you need every player to play their role perfectly. That's kind of what a balanced diet does. Different nutrients, they all come together, and Unless you have these different nutrients, you won't have a strong team and you won't have a strong body. Okay. And the other extra bonus that you can have is a very simple pie chart, okay, which is just a round. And then you put these different, lines across it and you say 25% of your diet needs to be proteins. And then you give examples of proteins, eggs, meat, fish, etc. And 25% needs to be carbohydrates, which is cereals, rice, maida, that type of stuff. 40% needs to be vegetables and 10% needs to be fats. So if you use these different points and if you use this figure and perhaps you add in one of these analogies, you actually have, you've got an answer where the teacher will simply be, will have very difficult time trying to cut marks. Okay.
Anusha, there was one question
Okay.
with related to the balanced diet. If you could go back to that slide.
I'll go back to that slide. All right.
So how would you answer it differently following these same principles if it was for 2 marks?
Okay. So if it was for 2 marks, then what I would do is very simple. I would only go for the definition, the how. Okay. So I would use 2 principles over here. What? Sorry?
Your screen share.
It's not on, is it? I'm so sorry. Hang on. Yeah. Share. All right. Are you able to see?
Yes.
All right. Super. Okay. So what I would focus on is the what and the how, because at least in my experience as a teacher, I think those are the 2 most important points of a balanced diet. What is a balanced diet? And oh no, hang on. I think a why is also important. So what is a balanced diet? Why do you need a balanced diet? And what is the example of a balanced diet? So I would ideally, for a 2-mark question, I would give this definition. I would give the reasons for why you need a balanced diet. And I would also put in how you can have a balanced diet. So this diagram will come along with the how to show, that you need a balanced diet. For a balanced diet, you need these different amounts of different things. And for, so overall, these make for 3 points. So if you want that extra half point and you want to make it, 2 marks out of 2 marks, you add in your bonus in terms of the analogy. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So essentially what I'm saying is that the who and the when are not very important for answering this question. This is something that you guys will have to figure out as and when you are writing answers. So you will gain experience while you're doing this. Right. Okay. So the next question again is on biology to explain the function of the cardiovascular system. So this is a 4-mark question. And like I said, again, you could have this for 1 mark each, 4 points, or 8 points, which is for half a mark each. So this is a fairly easy, straightforward question to answer because first and foremost, you will have to tell them what is the cardiovascular system. So you will have to tell them that, cardiovascular system, it is formed of the heart, blood vessels, and what each of these different things do. Okay. And then the functions are actually, there are roughly around 6 functions of the cardiovascular system. So if you add up the points, what it comes to is that you have essentially 7 points. So there's still that half a point that your teacher may not give you because you only have 7 points. You only have the definition and you have these 6 different points of what the cardiovascular system does. So to make sure that you do not miss out on that extra half point, and you have the time for it, of course, you can talk about the analogy here. The body's circulatory system is like a delivery system, okay? So it is like, the heart is like one central coordination point and the blood vessels are all like roads and the blood cells and the fluid that makes up the blood, they're all like delivery agents. And depending on what is moving through the blood, the blood cells could be the delivery agents for oxygen and carbon dioxide, whereas the blood fluid itself is like a delivery agent for nutrients and waste products and whatnot. Okay. And usually, like I say, if you want to add in one very cool little diagram, I found this very nice hand-drawn diagram to show what a circulatory, the cardiovascular system is in short. Okay, so what it does is there is no fancy drawing or anything over there, but it gets the message across very beautifully. It shows the heart with the auricles and the ventricles, and it shows how the heart pumps blood to the lungs, where and from the lungs, once the blood is oxygenated, it comes back to the left auricle, and then from there it is pumped to the body, and then how the body then the blood from the body then gets back into the right auricle. So this is, I thought, a very nice way of explaining how the cardiovascular system and the circulatory system works. Okay, right. So now we are coming to a bunch of questions which are going to probably use the who, what, where, why, when technique more in more detail. Okay, so for example, you have this question: write a short note about the Battle of Kalinga. Okay, and this is for about 3 marks. Here is where again you can use the who, what, where, why, when. Who? So who were the people who were involved in the Battle of Kalinga? That would be Ashoka and Ananta Padmanabha, and the Mauryan and the Nanda empires. Where did the Battle of Kalinga happen? Which is in present-day Odisha. When did it happen? That was in 261 BCE. Why did it happen? Because of political reasons, and the Nanda Empire was in a strategic location, and Ashoka wanted to expand his empire. You know, those can be written in like one single sentence or 2 sentences. How was that battle fought? They used cavalry, they used foot soldiers, they used elephants. And what it led to ultimately was Ashoka's Dhamma. At the end of that battle, Ashoka felt so bad about all the deaths that happened that he converted to Buddhism. Okay, so again, if you see 3 marks and there are 6 points over here, half a mark for each point, you should ideally just get the marks easily. And for each of these points, you can simply write 1 sentence. But if you want to add in that storytelling aspect, you know, the last part of this, what it led to, Ashoka's Dhamma, you can actually dramatize this using storytelling. So you could, rather than just say, you know, Ashoka's Dhamma came about because, you know, the Battle of Kalinga led to Ashoka's Dhamma, blah, blah, blah. You know, that makes it sound rather boring. Instead of that, what you can do is say, the Kalinga War was more than just a battle. It was a turning point in history. You see that, you note that drama over there. Okay, it transformed a ruthless conqueror into one of the greatest advocates of peace, leaving a legacy that shaped India and the world for centuries to come. So by using slightly flowery language, you've actually elevated your answer, and you're probably going to draw in your teacher to want to read your answer by saying this. Okay, and now here is a really interesting question. In a history exam, in a history paper, how are you going to bring in this element of a figure? Okay, so I gave it quite a bit of thought, and I realized that a lot of history is about time. And one of the most difficult things about history is to remember the years or, you know, the timings of what happened when. And there is actually a very cool way of representing that. And there's a very cool way, if you represent it that way, it actually helps you learn quite quickly. And that is something known as timelines. Okay, so that is your bonus point over here. That's your other bonus point over here. So for this, if you actually start your answer by adding a timeline, okay, all you need to do is draw one sleeping line and then a bunch of standing lines. Okay, and then you write when Ashoka was born, when Ashoka's reign, when he became king, when the Kalinga War was, when the Kalinga War ended and he converted to Buddhism, and when he died. Okay, there are just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of information you put in over there. And then after this, you add all of these who, where, why, when, how, etc., etc. It actually becomes a very beautiful, very complete answer. And if you actually started off by drawing this timeline, it helps you think about the flow of the answer, and it makes you construct your answer even better. Okay, right. Now we come to a fairly boring question. This is about geography. This is on geography. And it just says, you know, it's a very dry question. Write a note on the physical features of India. And this is huge. It is 5 marks. So how would you do something like this? First and foremost, you will need to break down those 5 marks into, you know, how many points I can write. The really nice thing is that India is such a beautifully diverse place that it has so many different physical features that you already have 9 different physical features, and therefore you will have 9 points already ready for you to write about. So if you just start off by writing, what are the list out 9 of the physical features of India: the Himalayas, the Indo-Gangetic Plains, the Peninsular Plateau, Thar Desert, Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, coastal plains, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and Lakshadweep Islands. For each of these, if you can just add, you can use that where and what. If you use where and what, you will have one full sentence to write about each of these points. So for example, for the Himalayas, where are the Himalayas? They're in the north of India. And if you want to add a little extra information, say they're the world's highest mountain range. What are they? They act as a natural barrier and they are a source of major rivers. The Indo-Gangetic Plains, where are they? They're in the south of the Himalayas. What are they? They are very fertile plains formed by river deposits, and they support a lot of India's agriculture. So if you look at that, if you follow this, for each of these different points, I've used the storytelling technique where I have used where and what to construct a sentence about that one physical feature. To add the bonus over here, I don't think we can actually add an analogy to this because it's a very straightforward question. So rather than an analogy, what you can add for a bonus point is a rough map. Okay, so I understand somebody told me that this doesn't look like a hand-drawn map, but if you can quickly draw a map of India, it doesn't have to be perfect, it can be wonky, doesn't matter. And you can highlight each of these different physical features there. You've got your 5 marks. There is absolutely no way that a teacher will be able to cut marks for this. Okay, right. Now we come to a little bit of a googly. So I'm hoping that most of you guys know what civics is. And essentially civics is, well, I don't even know how to explain it, but well, civics is the study of how our government runs and how we rule ourselves. India as a nation, we are a democratic republic, and there is a particular way in which the government runs. And there is and that's what civics teaches us, how we rule ourselves. Okay, so let's say that you have one question in an exam, which asks you, what is the difference in the work done by MLAs, who are members of the Legislative Assembly, and government departments? So let's say this is again a short question, which is only 2 marks. You can give a very simple answer saying that MLAs make laws and decisions, but the government departments actually carry out those. So then, you can have these 2 points saying, what is the role of an MLA? MLAs, what are they? They are elected representatives. People elect them. What do they do? They raise concerns of the public and they take part in making laws. Okay. And they also approve the state budget. So essentially by using the what are MLAs and what do they do? You've explained what is the role of an MLA. Moving on to the role of the government department. So what are government departments? So you can give some examples of what the government departments are. Who are the government departments? They are usually bureaucrats and officials who handle day-to-day administration of the public services. All right. So using the who and what technique, you're able to answer this. And of course, looking at the number of points, if it's only 2 points and only 2 marks, you've got your 2 points over there, and you should be able to get your 2 marks over there. Okay. The bonus here will be that you can add a storytelling angle to this by again using an analogy. So the analogy here is that a large ship sailing across the ocean. To be able to reach its destination, this ship or all ships require a captain to make the decision and crew to carry out those orders. So in the same way, the MLAs are the captains and the government departments are the crew who work together, right? So this is what I could think of to be able to answer this question. But I think now there is a little bit of an issue in that if you have a topic in civics, would you happen to have any ideas for diagrams? So let's say that you go to that MLA question. How would you try and explain that using a diagram? Siddharth and Janani, I think the chat box is open for this.
Yes, it is. So the chat is open for anyone if you'd like to answer. And also want to tell you that after this, we'll be moving to a very interesting section, which is how do you use all of these techniques to study better? So one answer is flowcharts, mind maps.
Whoever has said flowcharts, tell me, how will you use a flowchart to answer this question?
Let me
A
ask.
it's a very specific question that I'm asking, which is for that question, what is the difference between MLAs and government departments? How will you answer that question using a figure? It has me stumped, which is why I'm asking you guys.
There's also, you can represent it in a table, like which person has what roles.
Yes, that's fantastic. So it's not a figure per se, but a table makes it a lot clearer because you're comparing. So you know that in one row in a table, you're comparing one particular thing, but you're showing that one person is doing it in one way and the other person is doing it another way. Fantastic answer. Table is really good. So in terms of other types of representations, I think I missed out tables, and that is something that you guys can use rather than a figure or something else. If something's, if there's a question that says compare and contrast, you will automatically go to a table. Good call.
The kind of structure is also a lot easier on the eyes than just text.
Very much, yes. Which is why that point system works so well. Sometimes when teachers just see those points and, fewer words, it just makes it easier for them to read. Venn diagram. Somebody says Venn diagram. That's very interesting. How would you do a Venn diagram in this situation? Because their roles are fairly different. How much of an overlap there is between the two? I can probably think about it as, public good is the overlap between the two. And for the MLAs, it is decision making and etc. etc. And for the government departments, it is day-to-day running of public services. That's a fantastic way.
Yeah, one of Sabila on YouTube suggested that we can make it a flowchart where we have stability or something at the center.
Okay.
And MLAs and government offices both pointing towards that and like crosstalk between them. So very similar to the image that you just.
Okay. That's really nice. I see somebody saying something about stick figures and meeting in the parliament, but those are very complicated. So for a 2-mark question, would you really want to do all of that? I really love the Venn diagram idea. I really love the, table idea. And I think you said there was one which is like a flow chart.
Yeah.
That may also work, but there again, you have to write a little bit to explain what each of them does. Again, if you put that in points, it's going to look amazing.
Yeah. Cool.
Sketch note. What is a sketch note? Any idea?
Yeah, no idea.
Okay. I think sketch note, somebody might have to explain a little later on.
But I think there's also differences and similarities that someone is suggesting.
That is really nice. So I didn't think about it because the question itself says, what is the difference between MLAs and government bodies? But it would probably add extra to that answer, apart from that analogy, if you also add the similarities between the two, that may be cool. I mean, again, depending on how much time you have. Most of these exams tend to have very short amounts of time to write in.
Yeah. So shall we move to the next part, Anusha?
We'll do that. Okay. Right. All right. Okay. So moving on. Yeah. So now that we've had a quick discussion on this, let's move on to the next topic, which is how to use storytelling while studying. Okay. So first and foremost, the storytelling analogies, for example, all the examples that I have given you guys, every one of these examples has had at least one analogy. So while you are studying, using analogies to study, it's a very powerful way of being able to study. Okay. So for one thing, analogies can help you understand the topic. So when you think of a topic and then you apply it to another system, that's what an analogy essentially is. So for example, when you're thinking about the circulatory system and then, the cardiovascular system, and you're comparing the heart to a post office, or you're comparing the arteries and the veins to roads, in a way, what it does in your brain is that it creates these connections which make you understand the topic even better. So using analogies while studying is a really, really good idea for you to be able to retain stuff. Also, it generates interest. So if you think about, when you're sitting and trying to understand something in biology, and biology tends to have these absolutely horrible words, things like artery, cardiovascular, you have these very complex terms. And a lot of sadly enough, a lot of those terms are based on Latin, which is not a language that we guys usually use nowadays. So in order to be able to make sense of those words and make sense of the concept and to generate interest in you, you can use analogies. Okay. Also, analogies help you to make stronger connections to the topic, because what happens is when you are using unfamiliar words, like let's say an artery, in the sense of something that is familiar, which is let's say a road, it helps you, once it makes that connect, it makes you understand what that artery does. So analogies really help make stronger connections to the topics, right? Apart from that, another very powerful storytelling technique for studying is to use mnemonics. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick break over here and ask people, do they know what mnemonics are? Does anyone know what a mnemonic is? And I'm pretty sure people are Googling it.
There's been one yes so far,
Okay, okay.
and one can you explain?
Oh, okay. Right. In that case, I will just go ahead and explain what a mnemonic is. Okay. So have you guys heard of Vibgyor? I'm sure all you guys would have heard of Vibgyor. What is Vibgyor? Vibgyor is what you use to remember the the colors of the rainbow, correct? Violet, indigo, blue, blah, blah, blah. That is what a mnemonic essentially is. For example, if you want to use a mnemonic for the different planets, you can say, my very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas. So it's a very simple set of, it's like a simple sentence, but each letter, the first letter of each word corresponds to each of the planets. M for Mercury, V for Venus, E for Earth, blah, blah, blah. So essentially what you're doing in mnemonics is that you are converting a particular series or list of names or a list of points that are there in a topic into an easy to remember sentence or an easy to remember block of information. Okay, so let me give you one more example of mnemonics over here, which is that for when you're doing biology, one of the banes of biology is having to learn about classification, which is kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So if you have an organism, how will you classify it? How will you give it its name? And there is a particular way of doing that, which is this. And you have to remember this particular list. And I used to have so much trouble remembering this list. Okay, but I came across this very cool mnemonic to be able to do it, which says, in the kingdom, phylum is a matter of class, but order is a matter for family, and genus lies in species. Now, I understand that genius and genus are not the same, but it helps. But, this is not a very good mnemonic because of the fact that, the sentence doesn't really make sense. Okay, so you can make a better mnemonic and look at things like, King Philip went to the classroom to order the family genius to specifically name the individual who had stolen a taxi. Now, this particular line is going to live in my head absolutely rent-free. And the moment I start thinking about it, I know, certain words are referring to certain parts of that list that I want to remember. Okay. So yeah, this, the two major points about how to use storytelling while studying and to use that toolkit that I've given you guys is to use analogies, to use mnemonics, to go back and before you start studying, always have a look at the questions. So that gives you an idea of what kind of questions can be asked for how many marks. And you will automatically, while studying, start thinking about answering those questions and thinking about the keywords and the key points that you will need to remember to be able to answer those questions. Okay. Right. So, are there any mnemonics that you guys have? So we'll take a quick break over here again to ask you guys, do you know of any mnemonics?
Well, the same one that you suggested of Kingdom Phylum class. The one I remember is kings play chess on funny green squares.
That's a nice one. That's a better one. But for me, this King Philip one really stuck. King Henry died, mother didn't cry. What is this a mnemonic for?
Srishti, what's the King Henry died one mnemonic for? Oh, this is for kilometer, hectometer,
Oh, I never thought about that.
yeah, decameter.
Hector.
Yeah.
Oh, this is very useful. Thank you so much. My elder daughter is struggling with this now in terms of distance. I will teach that to her. Thank you, guys. That's really nice. Please excuse my dear aunt. Which one is this one?
What is PEMDAS? Please
Me-
excuse. Oh, this is parentheses, multiplication, division. addition.
Oh, so you guys are using this mnemonic for maths also. So cool. Okay.
See this one.
Huh.
Eklavya says.
There's BBC News on Friday night for in chemistry for the first 10 elements.
Thank you so much. That would also be really useful. I'm writing these down.
So BBC News on Friday night is the first 10 elements in chemistry.
And we got the same one of King Henry died drinking chocolate milk.
King Henry died drinking chocolate milk.
Okay.
And there's also never eat soggy waffles for north, east, south, and west.
Uh-huh. Okay, northeast, south, and west. Okay.
And there was an elf named Ethel, and one day he fell, which is the three kinds of levers.
Okay.
So effort, load, fulcrum. Yeah.
So cool. So a lot of people are using mnemonics for quite a bit of stuff. So these guys are already advanced. I don't really need to teach them how to study.
Please stop calling me a careless zebra. Instead, try learning how copper saves gold is the metal activity series.
Wow. Could you, I would really love to have all of these mnemonics.
Yeah, that's what we'll save it in the chat.
Please do, please do. I want this list because these are absolutely amazing.
Folks, keep sending them in the chat, so then we'll make a nice
List. And yes, if we can put that into a PDF and send it out to people, that would be super cool. Okay. All right. So shall we get back?
Had a very good wife, resistor color codes. Okay.
Right. So now we're going to switch slightly and move on to talking about how to use storytelling for projects. I'm pretty sure all of you guys have projects to do. I know that I struggled with projects and I always used to struggle with what kind of a structure I should use for my projects to be able to get some marks. Okay. So I'll try to wrap this up quickly because essentially the, pattern that is followed is pretty much the same for the different things that I have talked about over here. Okay. So yeah, again, put on your listening ears. And to make your projects pop, what do you need to do? You can use the who, what, where, why, when, how principle to plan an outline for the project. You can use storytelling to create an easy flow of information. And of course, you can use those bonus points that I talked about. Use your analogies. Okay. Use analogies. And sometimes, if you're at a slightly more advanced level, you can use case studies and thought experiments to keep things interesting. And finally, a lot of times in projects, I have seen that, people tend to use pictures just because, they want something colorful in there. But no, you can actually use pictures like diagrams, flowcharts, and other things to cut down on the amount of writing that you need to do so that you convey information without having to do too much writing. Okay. So here's one example. We'll go back to that functions of the cardiovascular system, but now you have to do project for 10 marks. How will you do this? Okay. Again, this is the old system of what all functions there are and what the definition is. So let's say you keep this as your outline. How would you go about doing this? Now, since this is a 10-mark project, I would expect you to have at least 10 pages of proper written stuff. Proper written stuff in the sense that one page, each page should have, quite a bit of material. So what I did was I actually put this into different pages. All right. So if for a 10-mark project, you need 10 pages. So let's say you start with page 1. You can start off with definition. And then the analogy that you can give over here is that, circulatory system is like a transport system. And again, you can use a what, where, and why storytelling system to show what is the cardiovascular system. That's your definition. Where does it occur all over the body? And why is it there? and you give, a simple list of its functions. And the pictures that you can use over here are, you can show a picture of a heart, you can show a picture of arteries, veins, capillaries, you can write about the composition of blood. So that is one page down, okay? And you get 1 mark for that page. Second page is you focus on the heart. So you can say the analogy here is the heart is like a central coordination system. And then when you use that what, where, and why analogy, you can say what is the heart? It is a muscular pumping organ. Where is the heart? It resides almost in the center of your body, a little to the left. And why is the heart is probably a little difficult to answer, but you can probably say why the heart is so important, which is that it pumps blood. Okay, a diagram of the heart showing structure and flow of blood. You remember that beautiful hand-drawn little image that I had shown? Something like that should be more than enough for this. Page 3, you can actually talk about the different functions. That is the transport of oxygen. So use the analogy that red blood cells are like delivery system. Okay, use the what, where, and why. So what component of blood does the transport of oxygen require? You can say it's the red blood cells. Where does it happen? It happens all over the body. And why is it important? And you can have pictures of the red blood cell carrying oxygen, and you can probably have some images of hemoglobin and other things. Okay. So essentially, you see there is a pattern to all of this. What you're doing is you're adding an analogy. You're using the what, where, and why technique to address that particular topic. And you're using pictures to show something important in that topic. Okay. For example, the transport of nutrients. So blood is like a highway where nutrients molecules, they zip around. And you can use the what, where, and why technique to add in some value to, how transport of nutrients happens. Okay, you can have a picture of the gastrointestinal tract where all of these nutrients are being absorbed by blood. Okay. Page 5 is on transport of waste. Blood also acts like a host of garbage trucks which carry waste away from cells. Okay, why is this important? Where does it happen? All of these things you can do. All right, the picture here, this is a nice picture showing how oxygen and water, glucose, and other things get into cells, and these cells release all of the wastes and carbon dioxide, which the blood takes away. Page 6 could be on transport of hormones. Here is a slightly different system. You can say that the blood also acts as a messenger and alert system, because that's what a lot of hormones do. They're like, the blood is like a messenger that carries the hormone from one place to another place in the body, and then, makes sure that things happen. So you can use insulin as an example. Okay. You can have a picture about how insulin is once sugar levels in the blood go up, insulin is released, and how all of that leads to so many different changes in the body. Okay. Page 7 could be on regulation of body temperature. How does blood help with that? Okay, because blood also acts as a radiator fluid. It distributes heat. For example, our livers produce a lot of heat, but our brains really don't produce that much heat. But you can't have, a situation where your liver is heating up over here and your brain is very cold. So blood is really important because it takes the heat from the liver and it distributes it to the brain and to all the other parts of the body. And so you have a steady body temperature. Okay. An example for this is, some of the figures and other things that I pulled out, you can find on Google or you can make up your own. Protection against diseases. So blood contains all these white blood cells. So blood is like a police station, and the white blood cells are like your police officers. Okay. And you can have a picture which shows the different types of blood cells, the white blood cells. Okay. So that till now, I think, is still page 8. Now you still have 2 more pages and perhaps a bonus page if you want to do it. So I thought for pages 9 and 10, you can talk about diseases of the circulatory system. Okay, so what happens when things go wrong in the circulatory system? You can use again the what, where, why, and when situations, to talk about these different diseases. Pictures, I'm leaving that to your imagination, guys. And the bonus page that you can think about can either be page number 10 or an extra bonus page, is if you think about the who, how, and when of the circulatory system. As in, what are some of the major discoveries about the cardiovascular system, and what is the new research happening about it? So since this is a project, you're free not to use just your textbook, and you can look out into the internet and you can pull out all of this information. So you can use the who, what, where, why, when principle to come up with some interesting important discoveries, some important or new discoveries about the cardiovascular system. And I guarantee you, your teacher is going to be super happy. Okay, right. So let's have a quick recap of the session. We looked at how storytelling is a useful technique to use in exams. We looked at how storytelling can be used in answering questions. And this is the toolkit that we spoke about, which is that first you assess the question and use a point system using the marks that you have for that question. Use the who, what, where, why, when, and how system to write up analogies or to answer that question. Use analogies and examples and case studies to make your answer a little more interesting and to show your teachers that you understand the concepts, and make sure to use keywords. Okay. Storytelling for studying is that, the two new ones that we thought about were to use mnemonics and to use stories about lessons. So whenever you're reading a lesson, you think about it as a story. You can use the mnemonic method. You can perhaps use other ways of dramatizing things so that the lessons really stick to your brain. But storytelling can be useful for studying also. And finally, we also went over how storytelling techniques can be used for projects so that you get maximum marks out of a project. Right. I'm handing over the rest of the session to Janani for a couple of things. Janani, over to you.
Hi, everyone. So we have a whole load of questions, but we're going to give Anusha 2 minutes to catch her breath because she's sort of been on this, been on a marathon over here. And so thank you so much, Anusha, and thank you so much to all of you for sort of really for being lovely lovely audience for this session. So I just want to share a little more about what are the upcoming opportunities that we have here on Gifted World. So as I said, we have a whole range of interesting courses and sessions that are happening over the coming months, especially during summer, so that you've got something good to look for at the other end of the exams. First of all, as we said, next Saturday at the same time, so 5 p.m. India time, 3 p.m. UAE time, we'll just be having a hangout with a bunch of Gifted World mentors. So treat it as like your brain break and time for maybe clarifying doubts. We'll try and explain concepts in good ways. So sign up for that. It's a no pressure, come together and learn activity. 2 weeks from now, Sukanya Sinha will be doing, Sukanya, who's an amazing science teacher and math teacher, is doing a masterclass on why is gravity so special. So it'll be a journey into the heart of physics. And it's also a lead up to an amazing course that Sukanya is going to be running on physics later in the summer, called Concepts in Physics, Mastering Mechanics. So all of our courses happen over 2 weekends. So Saturday, Sunday, then a Wednesday or Thursday evening session, and then Saturday or Sunday. So whether you have exams going on or not exams, you should it should be comfortable for you to attend. And the idea of these courses is to teach concepts in an interesting manner, in a hands-on manner. And rather than focusing on teaching a lot of things, we try to focus on getting a particular concept really drilled down deep and connecting the dots to all different kinds of things, right? So for example, in a science course for junior students that I did in December, we were talking all the way from like bacteria to ice to water cycles to levers, but all sort of conceptually connected in a stream that we went along. So there's specifically Anusha is running 2 really fun courses, one for all ages, so grades 4 through 8, on ecological collaborations. So that's about how mutualisms and marketplaces sort of cover our whole world and describe it in it's a really fun lens on which to look through it. And there's also a course on DNA detectives, which is telling the story of how DNA was discovered and sort of learning those key experiments, those scientists, what they did. So that should also be, that will be a really fun course that's happening in June, heading over into July. And we also have a whole range of other courses that are coming up. I'm especially excited about Rupin Cheda's course on building blocks of robotics, where you will be learning to use an online free design tool to build jointed legs and then creating all kinds of creations out of it. Rupin is a really amazing hands-on educator. So you can see all of these on our website, and you can sign up for the free masterclasses and our student Adda now itself. And we'll keep putting up more of these as time goes by. Do follow us on YouTube and stay on our email subscriber list so that every month we'll keep telling you what more fun things are coming around. We'll also post in the chat about the upcoming sessions. And there's a special discount code for those of you who've attended today's session that you can get to attend Anusha's courses that are happening in May and June at an additional discount. Some of you have come from the Asset Talent Search, or you qualified for the Asset Talent Search in UAE, and we'll be in touch with you about special offers of what you get from Gifted World, because Educational Initiatives is one of the founding members of Gifted World. Those who do the Asset Talent Search get special privileges at Gifted World. With that, in case Anusha is ready for looking at the fire hose of questions that we have heading her way.
Okay.
Also, before those questions, Anusha, would you like to tell us in 2 minutes what you're really looking forward to in these summer courses that you've planned for us?
Oh, okay. That was a googly. And I owe you an apology. I was under the impression that Janani would be
Oh,
taking
that's fine. Don't worry.
and it's so I put her name on the this one. She's there. Is it? Sorry, Janani, on my presentation. Okay. Yeah. So what am I looking forward to in these courses? Is it? I'm certainly looking forward to interacting with all the students. My last course was just so much fun because the students made it fun. I really enjoyed teaching them, and a lot of cases where the students have probably been doing the same thing that I'm teaching, but they've not connected certain dots. I'm hoping for those aha moments during the courses that I will teach over this summer. So I'm really looking forward to interacting with students and to teaching you about mutualisms, which is a subject which is very close to my heart. I worked on the FIG-FIGWAS mutualism for my PhD, which I think Siddharth told you guys about. But apart from just the FIGs and the FIGWAS, there are so many different systems out there. And you'll be surprised to know that we have mutualisms within us. Humans have them also in our bodies. So that's something I'm really excited about exploring. And the DNA detectives, that course is going to be a lot of fun because most of our textbooks don't really tell us the stories behind how those experiments came about. And I'm hoping that, it'll be a mix of both storytelling and the actual science behind how all of those things came about. So yes, I'm very excited about both those courses.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Anusha. So if you're okay with diving into questions, I'm happy to
Yes, please.
sharing those with you. So one of the questions that came up earlier was, do you have any suggestions for a person with writing disability on how they can score well in exams using the things that you have shared?
Right. So for writing disability, I am assuming that they are having trouble in general with writing long sentences and having to write a lot. So the way that you can try to get over that is by using diagrams and using flowcharts and other things. So there you may not need to write full sentences, and that will probably, but then you have to use those keywords. So if you can use a figure or a diagram to show that you know the concept and you only have to put in the keywords over there, usually that is a good way for you to score. It's unlikely you will score the full marks because I'm sure your teachers expect you to write sentences. But if you do that or you use a point system, you will definitely get good marks. So yeah, using the point system and, making sure that your point system also corresponds to the keywords. So if you're using a point system, let's say there are 5 it's a 5-mark question. So keep in mind that most likely there will be either 5 or there may be 10 key points, keywords that you will need to put in. If you're able to do all of that, perhaps in a sentence format, or in a point format, or in a diagram format, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to score pretty well there.
Then there's another question of, I have issues remembering the dates for social studies. Ideas on how we can help.
Use the timeline idea. Okay, so all you need to do for timelines, it's really simple. And what happens is our brains are really interesting in that sometimes it's easier for the brain to remember, not sometimes, most of the time, it's easier for your brain to remember a diagram or a picture. That's why people say a picture can convey 1,000 words. A picture is equivalent to 1,000 words. It's if you can put those dates into the form of a timeline. Again, a timeline is so simple to construct. You just need to draw either a sleeping line or a standing line. Okay, and then show from what time, what year to what year it's going, and then put these little crosses across, and then put in the years, and then put a dash next to each, and then put an event next to all of them. You've got everything done. So you have this very neat little figure, which when you look at it, your brain is more ready to understand and to remember that figure than it is to be able to read through one full paragraph and then remember all of those timelines. Okay, and all of those years and whatnot, the dates. So yeah, you should probably try and use that system. It has worked for me in the past, and I know that I still use it sometimes.
So one request for all of you is that please let's be respectful to each other in the chat while you're putting out your questions and having other conversations. So please do that. Other questions for Anusha. So if your book doesn't contain topics like when, why, where, etc., and your teacher didn't teach you these points, then what do you write?
Okay. So in most cases, you won't find a when, why, and where in your textbook directly. You will have to probably think about it. So for example, that nutrition question, a balanced diet, which, most textbooks will not talk about the who of it, not in a direct way. Okay. But somewhere there, they will have a line saying that a balanced diet is different for different people. People who are younger require higher calories than people who are older. Well, those are the things. So that requires a little more thought process on your end to figure out what or where that who, when, and those other questions are. In case you're not able to find it, then there's always, internet to figure it out. But you need to be able to think about these things before an exam. So when you're studying, you need to remember these things. So using that who, what, where, why, when, and how technique while studying might actually be quite useful for you to be able to use it in the exams.
Students, sorry, Anusha, can students in grade 10 join your courses in the summer?
Yes. I will still have interesting stuff for you guys to do, which you probably will not do in school.
I kind of knew the answer for that, but I wanted to. So now this is a lovely question that came up very much in the start of the session, and I told Sahana that we'll talk about it. So she wanted to know if a well-crafted narrative can ever be more truthful than raw data in academic discourse. If academic writing embrace storytelling as much as research, how might that change the way we perceive knowledge?
It's a really beautiful question. Yes, so when she says truth, unfortunately, I tend to think of truth as bare facts. But there is a difference. What a good narrative can do is it can convert those raw facts into actual knowledge. So she is right in that, I wouldn't say that the two of them contain more or less truth. But what I will say is that one will convey the truth much better than the other. So whenever I usually give this course on popular science writing to graduate students and to postgraduate students. And there I keep telling them that there is a very, very important difference between accuracy and, what's the word? Just hang on. Just give me 1 minute and I will pull it up. There is a difference between these two words. It's accuracy versus precision. Okay. Right. So I can give you, for example, if I'm talking about some data, I can give you a very precise answer. Okay. I can give you a very precise rendition of the data and tell you, like she said, I can give you all the raw data and say, this is what this shows. This is what this experiment shows, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of it, if you come back and tell me that, I didn't understand what you're trying to convey, or rather you get so confused with all the data over there and you tell me the opposite of what I'm trying to tell you, then you've not done a very good job in communicating stuff. So that is where, even if you don't give a very precise rendition of that data, you don't give them the raw data, but you use an analogy to explain what it is. That's not exactly, truthful of the data. But at the end of the day, if I've explained it using an analogy and not the actual data, but the person who's listening to me comes back and says, this is what that concept is, then accuracy has been achieved. Truth has been told. Whereas in the other situation where you've been very precise, you've actually not been able to convey the truth. So that is a lovely question. And this is my answer to it, that narratives are very important in science, and raw data, while it contains all of the truth, cannot convey that truth. So the narrative is very, very important to be able to convey the truth.
Great. Thanks, Anusha. That was a much better articulated answer than I would be able to. So thank you. There was also a question of most people, what are your thoughts on drawing graphs? Most papers don't allow us to draw graphs, but what are your thoughts on how you use graphs?
I think graphs are fantastic. Why would anybody not allow you to draw a graph? So if you want, for example, to show, the relationship between two things, a graph is perfect. And I think I will add that to my list of things. I've put diagrams and pictures and whatnot. Graphs completely slip my mind, but yes, definitely use graphs to show things. I mean, I can think of economics papers where a simple graph where you show, x-axis, y-axis, and then you show what that relationship is. That's fantastic. I think graphs are fantastic ways of conveying information.
Okay. I think Mustafizur has his hand up. Do you have a question?
Sir, no, I don't have question, but I came in EISA top 15 in my school.
Okay, thank you, Mustafizur. We'll be in touch. Definitely lovely to have you here. Anyone else with questions? How can we make graphs with Tanvi? If you could, let me just invite you to unmute so that you can ask the follow-up to the graph question. So you want to know how to make it using minimum space.
Yes.
Could you say more?
Yeah, could you explain a little bit what do you mean by minimum space?
So like basically in most question papers there isn't like much space to write answers with graphs and explanation bonus points.
Okay, got it. All right. So what I would suggest in this situation is that, quick question here. Do your teachers expect you to write full sentences?
Most of the time, yes.
Most of the time, yes. So what you can do is that, I find this very interesting. What I will do is, the definition will always be a full sentence and my analogy will always be a full sentence. Okay, so those two things you can use as full sentences. But for the rest of it, when you're writing in points, use your keywords and put a dash and use keywords to add in an explanation. So there, even though you're not using full sentences, you're kind of saving on space, and you can draw up maybe a small graph on the side to show all of this. So what you can do probably is, keep a small section aside for your graph and then fill up the rest of it with your writing. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Varun, you have your hand up. Is it a question?
No, sir. It's not a question, but I always follow this thing in my life. There's the three C's: concentration, consistency, and cooperation. These are the three C's which I use for everything I do in my life. I just wanted to say to everyone so they can also know.
Thanks, Varun. We've been hearing a lot of really useful
Mnemonics.
we should definitely add it to the list. Yeah, I think that's it on the questions that have come out to us.
Okay.
Yeah. And so once again, I just wanted to thank Anusha for running such a lovely session. The way you explained everything, running from ages 9 through to 10th grade has been really useful. In closing, Zareen has a question saying, how do you be most effective with your time in an exam?
Okay, so that's where I keep saying, use those diagrams. If you remember that first question that I gave you guys, that ethane with air and ethane with 100% oxygen, try and use your diagrams as the base for an answer. And if you can use little, again, as long as the space is not a constraint and other things, if you start off with a diagram and you start off with your with a diagram, usually you will end up with enough space and with you can write the minimum amount to give the maximum how would you put it, to get the maximum benefit from that time that you're spending over there. So in my case, when I would write my exams during my BSc, I would always start with a diagram and then add my key points next to the diagram. So I would have a diagram with all the parts labeled, and sometimes right next to the label, which is usually the keyword, I will put a dash and put a definition of it over there, or put whatever it is that question asked for over there. So a lot of times my answers were actually never in whole sentences, never in whole paragraphs. I think during my BSc, I don't think even one question paper I wrote where an answer was a whole paragraph for any of the larger questions. And usually we used to end up with questions that would be 4 marks and 5 marks. So that particular technique saved me a lot of time. And it also allowed me to cram a lot of information into a small space. Of course, there were situations where I had to write in a paragraph, but as much as possible, I tried to avoid paragraphs throughout my BSc. So I hope that answers your question.
We do have one more question that has come in, but before that, we'd love to hear from all of you in the chat of what has been sort of the favorite thing you have learned today, something unexpected or something useful that you take away from the session. It would be lovely for us to hear that. And also, I think Anusha would love to hear it after all the work that she's put in to doing this session for you. Alia has a question, and then if you'd also like to share your feedback verbally, I'm happy to respond to raised hands. Alia, would you like to ask your question?
We don't have space usually for a lot for exams. And should we write like a long answers for
No,
should we
Alia,
write long answers?
that's what. So rather than write long answers and write full sentences, what usually can work? Somebody with some background noise. Can you please mute yourselves? Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, so Alia, the thing here is, if you don't have too much space, one of the best things to do is write in points, use keywords, and rather than write in full sentences, try to convey your information with as few words as possible if you have a space constraint.
This person.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, if you saw the examples that I gave in that, write about the physical features of India. I think I used like about 10 lines, but in each of those lines, I packed it with information without writing in full sentences. And I used a lot of keywords over there. So that's one way to go if you don't have too much space.
Okay. So Krishiv, you have your hand up.
Sir, I wanted to share what I learned from this class. Most of all, I learned how to use the analogies in a sentence and how to improve your sentence with the bonuses.
Okay, that's good. Were you expecting something like that, Krishiv? Or was this new?
Oh, oops.
No? Okay,
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting this much from this session.
all right.
It was a good surprise.
It's nice.
Thanks, Krishiv. Anushka, your hand is up.
I learned around a bajillion new mnemonics.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know this many mnemonics were possible.
Same with me. The number of
Whoever
mnemonics is just mind-boggling. It's amazing.
whoever made these mnemonics is an absolute genius.
Absolutely, I agree. Siddharth, you're muted. We are not able to hear you.
Hi. Tanvi, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Yes, so from this session, I got to learn about many of the tips for improving my writing and answers, how we can use storytelling to not cram information for practicing for exams. So it was very helpful.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. Naima?
Yeah, I really like this section. Everything I learned is new. And then also, day after tomorrow is going to my science exam. That's why I said my science textbook in the chat earlier. And then yeah, I feel like I will use a lot of these new things, information I have learned in my science exam, and I'm having difficulty on one of the chapters. So I feel like all the tips that I have been learned throughout this period, I will use it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Cool. All the best. And I'm so glad that this came in useful.
That's also from YouTube. One person has pointed out that diagrams, I never really thought about it, to be honest, and it would save a lot of time as well and save space because I write rather big. So diagrams was a big revelation for Babita. Sabila, would you like to share?
Yes,
Um,
it helped me a lot because I remember before I used to just cram in all the information I knew and then put a small photo at the end, like draw a small photo at the end. That's all I would do. But now, like, I know how to use like the space wisely and I don't have to add new lines just to complete my answer.
Great. Thanks, Sabila. And finally, we'll hear from Sumuk and Zareen, and then we'll wrap up. Thank you all for staying so long. But Sumuk, what have been your thoughts?
I learned how we could write in exams more efficiently. If we how we write, then how will the marks will get?
Lovely, Sumuk.
Depends on how we write.
right.
Definitely. And efficiency helps you a lot. Both efficiency in how you like get stuff into your head and efficiency in how you get it out. And
Exactly.
what Anusha has shown us today is on both sides of it. And therefore, making you more efficient enables you to do so much more in life. Zareen?
I would like to say that thanks a lot, guys. It was a really brainstorming lesson. And most of the points, I actually have an exam upcoming on Monday. So it's going to be really helpful, and it is social science. And the mistake I usually do in social science is that I have a lot of things in mind. I have a lot of about the answer. I have a lot of things in mind, but I have no idea how to convey those answers in the paper. And most of the times I forget most the things that I have to write. And yeah, that's the thing. And the thing you have mentioned here about the analogies, it's really going to help me. And thanks a lot, both of you. Thanks a lot, Anusha ma'am and Siddharth sir. Thanks a lot. It is really going to help. I don't have any regressions attending this session.
Okay, thank you so much, Zareen, and thank you for giving me some credit because all I did was just help anchor it. Anusha has done all the work, as has Janani.
Thank you for some
Yeah.
extra side credit here to that.
So finally, Varun.
Sir and ma'am, could also photographic memory can help in exams. Like you can just read the paragraph once and you can just make it on your own words using analogies.
I mean, if you have it, that's great, but I don't. Yeah, great. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming here today. Next Saturday, same time, hope to see you if you're interested in just like hanging out and discussing concepts and helping out. So join us for our student agenda. And please feel free to reach out for any questions. And really glad to be building this community with all of you. Please do share our masterclasses with your friends. Let's enable all of you to learn better, to grow better, and reach your full potential. So thank you all. We're closing up this masterclass for now. And all the best for those of you who are having exams. And for those of you who are reading storybooks during your exams, all the best as well, because that's some of the best story reading you do in life.
All right.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Feel free to unmute and say goodbye. Let me give you permission. Yeah, if you can turn on your video, unmute.
Bye, sir. Bye,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, ma'am.
much.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye.
I had one more doubt.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, then.
Anybody had a doubt?
Will there be classes like every Saturday or like specific Saturdays and Sundays?
Usually have classes 2 to 3 Saturdays per month. And if you sign up for a course, you may have more classes after that. But master classes happen around 2 to 3 times a month.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day ahead.
You
Bye.
too.
So will
Yes.
we be informed about the master classes?
Yes. So if you've signed up to our email list on Gifted World, so we'll be in touch with you. So we'll send you an email every month with the full digest. And also, if you're active, you'll get an email every week with reminders of different things that are happening.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful lesson.
Bye-bye, Sumuk.
Bye-bye, Samuk. Thank you.
Bye, sir. Bye, ma'am.
Mhm.